This is CNN Breaking News.
All right, we do have breaking news in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, minutes ago, literally, releasing emails that they say were written by Jeffrey Epstein that explicitly, specifically mentioned Donald Trump by name and in context that we really haven't heard before. Let's get right to Caitlin Collins, who's got this reporting. Caitlin, what are you learning?
Yeah, John, these are emails that show Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump by name multiple times in private correspondence that he had with people, including Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously his longtime associate and accomplice, and also the author Michael Wolff, in a time span of about the last 15 years or so in these emails. Now, these are coming out from the House Oversight Committee. They had issued a bipartisan subpoena to Jeffrey Epstein's estate, John, as you know, earlier this year. And so they've gotten their hands on a trove of documents. And these are emails that included Jeffrey Epstein on them. They were sent either to him or from him that mentioned Donald Trump before he was in office and also while he was in office during his first term. And I want to walk you through these emails of what exactly we are reading in Jeffrey Epstein's own words in these emails that have been released by the House Oversight Committee. And in one of them, Jeffrey Epstein says, and I should note, Trump did not send or receive any of these messages. He's not a party to these emails, John, but these are emails from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. This is one from April 2nd, 2011. And in this email, Jeffrey Epstein writes to Ghislaine Maxwell and says, quote, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. There's a name that's redacted, which the House Oversight Committee has said is a victim of Jeffrey Epstein's. Obviously, we have not been able to independently confirm that because her name is redacted from this email. But they say redacted spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." Ghislaine Maxwell responds to that email, John, and says, quote, "I have been thinking about that." Now, there's no context for that message in this release of what we're getting. Obviously, this was a time span, and this was about 3 years after Jeffrey Epstein had accepted what is now known as that sweetheart deal that only got him a few months in prison, and something that came under a ton of scrutiny during Donald Trump's first term in office because of his then Labor Secretary Alex Acosta, who helped negotiate that plea deal, that sweetheart deal, for Jeffrey Epstein at the time. And so that's the context of this came about 3 years after he had negotiated that plea deal, John. And there's also other emails that have been released by the committee this morning, including between Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff. People will remember Michael Wolff, of course, the author who wrote a book on the inner workings of Trump's West Wing back in 2018 during his first term. He is someone who has talked at length about his own correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein, published audio recordings of those conversations between the two of them. And in another email, and this seems to be a reference to Donald Trump saying that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club. And Jeffrey Epstein writes to Michael Wolff and says, quote, "Trump said he asked me to resign." And he adds, John, "Never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop." Now, again, we don't have the context of this email, but John, that comes as in recent months, we've heard President Trump himself and the White House say that Jeffrey Epstein was kicked out of Mar-a-Lago for being a creep. And Trump himself told reporters on Air Force One that he was trying to poach women, he and Ghislaine Maxwell, from the Mar-a-Lago spa. And that was why they had such a falling out and why he ultimately asked Jeffrey Epstein to leave the Mar-a-Lago club. Now, there's also a third email in here, John, and this is, again, in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff. And Michael Wolff emails Jeffrey Epstein, and this is back in December 15th, 2015, so the height of the 2016 campaign, just to put that in perspective for you. And it was the day of a CNN Republican primary debate. And Michael Wolff says, quote, "I hear that CNN is planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in a scrum afterwards." And Epstein wrote, "If we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be?" Michael Wolff responded at length, John. I'll summarize it, but he said in regards to Trump, "I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt." Now, I'll note, John, we looked at the transcript of that CNN debate from December 2015. There's no mention of Jeffrey Epstein in there. And of course, As I mentioned, Donald Trump himself is not a party to these emails. But what this shows is Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump by name multiple times at a moment here in Washington when their relationship has come under incredibly intense scrutiny, John.
Caitlin, as you mentioned multiple times, we just don't have the context surrounding any of these emails. But that first email you read, the language absolutely jumps out to me. This is April 2nd, 2011. Epstein writes to Ghislaine Maxwell, I want you to realize the dog that hasn't barked is Trump, blank. And blank here is one of the alleged victims of Jeffrey Epstein. A victim spent hours at my house with him being Trump. He has never once been mentioned. Now, again, we don't have the context surrounding that, Caitlin, but this kind of language from Jeffrey Epstein himself, how often has Donald Trump, what has Donald Trump said about contact he may have had or time he may have allegedly spent with some of Epstein's alleged victims?
Yeah, and John, just to be clear, the woman, the person whose name is redacted here was redacted by the House Oversight Committee before they put this out. That has been a huge point of focus as people have demanded the release of these documents, is to be able to protect the survivors and the victims. We have not been able to independently verify who this person is. The committee is the one doing the redacting here. But obviously he is referencing someone who Jeffrey Epstein says in this email from 2011 that spent time with Donald Trump at his house. And so we've asked the White House for comment on this morning. Obviously, these are emails that predate his time in office this term. They span about 15 years, this correspondence that's being released. And Trump has denied that he knew anything about what Jeffrey Epstein was doing and the sex trafficking of young women. And he said that he wasn't aware of that at the time. And obviously, Trump himself has not been accused of any wrongdoing. It's very important that we make that clear here, John. But of course, the question has been when it comes to regards to the Justice Department and what they've released about what they know. And Adelita Grijalva is being sworn in today. She's the new House Democrat from Arizona, and she's expected to be that 218th signature. And so the pressure has been building on not just Democrats, but Republicans here in Washington to release more information about what the Justice Department has. And so looking at that email, obviously, will likely only increase that pressure to do so. And you're right, John, we don't know the context of that. But obviously you can read Jeffrey Epstein's words in and of itself and take away obviously what you will from that.
Oh yeah, it begs many questions to be asked, perhaps to the president or the White House. You've already put this to them. Much more on this ahead. Caitlin Collins,
and
thank
you
so
John,
much. Oh, please.
I just want to say, because obviously, you know, we're breaking this morning. We did get a comment from Michael Wolff himself on this. I reached out to him to ask for any context on these emails, for anything from him. And he said, quote, I don't quite remember the context, but he says, I was engaged then in an in-depth conversation with Epstein about his relationship with Trump, and this seems to be part of that conversation. We have not yet gotten a comment from the White House. Obviously, they were going through these emails themselves this morning, and we will let you know what they have to say about it and what the president himself has to say about it, John.
All right, all of this developing before our very eyes. Caitlin Collins breaking this for us this morning. These emails, which we haven't seen before, where Jeffrey Epstein explicitly mentions Donald Trump by name over the years in different circumstances. Caitlin, thank you very much